Maclean here. Is how I say your name?
Maclean, that was right.
Yeah. And she's joining us all the way from Malawi. So we're very excited. It's our very first guest from Malawi. We've had people from Rwanda, Uganda. So we're growing, we're expanding, guys. And I'm really excited for today's interview. And hopefully you guys are also excited as well. Just for those of you who are new to No Ordinary Life, we're all about inspiring young people, especially, but mainly anyone really, to pursue their talents, their goals, and anything that they want to pursue, and to make sure that they're really dreaming big. So today's guest is going to tell us more about herself, and she's an expert in business. Being an entrepreneur of several businesses. So hopefully you guys can learn a lot from her. So without further ado, I'm going to ask our guest to introduce herself as best as she can. Yes, so Maclean, tell us more about yourself. What do you do? And
Okay, thank you, Claudia. My name is Maclean Mbepula. I'm from Malawi, and I'm an entrepreneur. But I wouldn't say I'm an expert. I'm just an entrepreneur who has been at it for like a long time and is surviving. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. Okay. So just to let everyone know as well, the format for our interviews. So we usually have three parts of the interview. We have the interview like we're doing now. Myself and Maclean will be talking. And then we have a fun segment, which is usually a challenge. So looking forward to that. And then we have the audience Q&A. So you guys will get the chance to ask your questions later on in the interview. So do make sure you're writing questions down, okay? And keep them. And then there'll be time for you to also share your questions and ask Maclean your questions. So without further ado, I have an icebreaker question, Maclean.
Okay, shoot.
Okay, so my icebreaker question for you is give me 3 words to describe yourself.
Okay, 1, creative, 2, thoughtful, and 3, stubborn.
Wow, I wasn't expecting the third one.
I'm very stubborn.
Okay. I get the creative one, I get the thoughtful one, but maybe you can tell us more about why would you describe yourself as being stubborn?
I think it could be something to do with my family. We have a lot of stubborn people from both sides, like from my dad's side, from my mom's side. There are a lot of stubborn people, like really persistent, like a dog with a bone type of persistent. And sometimes it's a good thing, and sometimes it's not such a good thing. But I will own that one. I am definitely stubborn.
Okay. So I hope it's a good stubborn, not the bad stubborn.
It manifests. Sometimes it works out well. Like in entrepreneurship, sometimes you have to be stubborn when people tell you not to try something, and you just, what, I'm going to do this no matter what. And then sometimes not so well when you keep on at a certain thing that's not working, but you're so passionate about it. Your thoughts are just so stuck on that thing. So for me, it manifests on both sides.
Okay, that's interesting. We'll get to find out more about this stubbornness as we go on in this interview. Okay, so we just want to find out more about yourself. So we'll talk more about, your educational background to begin with. So my first question to you is, what were you interested in when you were younger? Like, if you can tell us through the different kind of careers that you wanted to have as you were growing up.
Okay, well, I think because when I was much, much, much younger, like as a child, I think I just wanted to kind of be everything. You'd see something on TV. Oh, I want to be a policeman. Oh my gosh, I want to be a doctor. Oh, I want to be a pilot. All sorts of things. But I think when I was around in my teens, I think I was interested in psychology a lot. And then due to circumstances and opportunities, IT is what, ICT, information communication technology, was the path that kind of just came up. And I'm glad that's the path that I chose.
Okay. Oh, that's great. Okay. And so moving on from that, what did you study at secondary school? So pre-university, what did you study?
Well, here there are a bunch of subjects everybody has to take. English, mathematics, and physical science, home economics. Well, if you don't take a certain one, they might give you another. So some people would probably take French instead of, home economics or something like that. But yeah, before I did my degree, I also did a diploma, an NCC education diploma in computer studies, majoring in programming. And they taught us how to program in Visual Basic.net and a few other things. So yeah, that's what I studied.
Okay, right. Oh, I actually did computing for my in college, so I know a bit of Visual Basic. Very
Did you
little.
enjoy it?
I did enjoy it. I did enjoy it. But I couldn't
Me
do
too.
the extra bits of programming that you have to learn to do. I think you have to be very, very brainy to be a programmer. It's just, yeah. So yeah. So in terms of your university degrees, what did you study at university, and what was your most enjoyable module in terms of what you studied?
Okay, well, so I did, like I said, I did the NCC diploma first, and here you can actually anywhere. I think even in the UK, if you have the NCC diploma, the first diploma and the second diploma, then you can do an honors, like it will equate to a bachelor's program. So after I did that diploma and another one specifically in website design, I then did a Bachelors of Arts degree in education, majoring in ICT here at Malawi Assemblies of God University.
Mm,
The diploma I mentioned first was at National College of Information Technology. That's where I studied
mhm,
that. Yeah, but there's like a huge gap because initially I was just running my business with my diploma backgrounds, website design, social media marketing. It was sufficient to an extent, and there are certain other things that I would find online to learn to do better, to offer better services for my clients. But after a while, I thought, okay, let me go and do my degree. So I went back many years later, 2016. I went and did my Bachelor's of Education in ICT.
okay. And then in terms of doing the Bachelor's of Education in ICT, were you hoping to be an IT teacher? Is that what was the reason why you studied that?
It it was just psychological, to be honest. Like the thing is, I was told, okay, there are certain opportunities that you can't access without a certain level of education, and because the diplomas that I had, um, there were certain opportunities I would still be able to have, but you'd sometimes find projects that come along and they're looking for someone with at least a Bachelor of Education in something or some similar field. And so I was trying to have access to those opportunities, but also on a bigger note, I was also trying to do it for myself, my own
Mm,
psyche, because there was that thing that, oh, okay, I don't have a degree, I don't have a degree, I don't have a degree. And you can still say, no, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. But at some point, depending on who you are, there's some people who don't, like, they've never stepped foot in university, they're doing just fine, they're making way more money than I'll ever see. But there are those other people who that nagging feeling puts them at a psychological disadvantage. So I
mm,
wanted to eliminate that thing. Like, if I'm going to have a hang up, it shouldn't be that. So
mm.
I basically eliminated that issue. Now I don't have to worry about that.
Okay. Wow. 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 Interesting. So hopefully we'll get to talk more about the, the challenges of or the opportunities presented by education in Malawi, hopefully. And that might be someone's question, depending on who's watching. So regarding, you mentioned you were doing things on the side as well. So I wanted to ask, my first question to you on this one is, how was it entering into the job market? Did you feel like university or education, formal education, prepared you for life after university?
No, no,
No.
no.
Okay.
um,
Hmm.
well, I have to add though that I never had the idea that I was like, it was never my intention to work for someone else. It
Mm.
never ever was. And I think it was because of my mom. She was basically a housewife and an entrepreneur. So I think in my head, it was planted that I don't have to be employed by someone else.
Wow.
Um, and my father was a career civil servant, like that was his whole life. But when I looked, I think subconsciously, but I know it came from these people. When I looked at
Mhm.
my dad's, choices, it made sense to him. It makes sense for the kind of personality that he is. But my
Mm.
mom is a creative person, and I think I'm a lot like her. And I
Mhm.
think what she had was far more attractive for me in regards to my own personality. So I never came off thinking, okay, after I finish university, I want to be employed somewhere and I want to be there for a couple of years and da da da. It did not cross my mind. I was
Mm.
extremely naive. Before, when you asked me about my three best, or my three top, how, I would categorize, how I would describe myself, I would have said
Yeah.
naive before. But I think with age, that's kind of wearing off. So I'm less
Mm.
naive, even though it's still there. But I think that's the one of the things that drove me to be an entrepreneur. This just assumption that I could do it, that
Mm.
I could be self-employed. So yeah.
Wow. Okay. I have questions about that, but let me stick with what I've got here. Okay. So you mentioned that you had started your own projects, I'll say. Which one came first and what inspired you to start the very first one that you did? What did you see in the market that you felt, okay, this one I need to do this quickly?
Okay, well, as I said, okay, so when I finished secondary school, or what you would call high school, whatever,
Mm.
I went to do my that first diploma I mentioned, and then as soon as I finished, I went to the UK. I lived in Nottingham for about 2 years, and whilst I
Oh,
was there, I did that website design diploma that I mentioned as a second diploma. And whilst I was there, before I came back, I did some research online about website, like the website design services back home in Malawi. And I discovered like straight away that there were not a lot of companies that had websites online, or organizations in general. It was just like this black hole, like there was just nothing.
mm.
Yeah, there were a few, but there weren't many. And this was around 2006, 2007 when I was doing my research. And then I came back 2007. So in my head, before I came, I thought, I think I want to start a website design business when I get back home.
Mhm.
So that was the idea. And when I got back home, I was right. Like, on the ground, it was exactly what I said. People didn't know what a website was and da da da, all that stuff. So usually, what I would end up doing when I had energy, I don't have energy anymore. But what I used to do is I would get the phone book, identify businesses that I would like to contact, and then I would cold call them. And then I would, if I manage to get an appointment, go over and meet with whoever makes the decisions. Hopefully, it's whoever makes the decisions, because sometimes you'd meet someone and they may refer you to someone else, etc. But I
Mm.
did that for some time, and it was grueling, but it made sense at the time. And what I discovered then, backing up my whole research, was that it required not just telling people what I offered. I also had to spend a good deal of time educating people on what website design is and all these other things.
Mm.
So, looking back, even what I have studied in education ICT, um, it helps me to do that better, because wherever I go, whether it's in ICT or any other creative um, expression, the ability to educate people, I think, is key. Yeah.
Mm. Wow, wow, wow. That's very interesting. I love your drive, doing the
Thank you.
cold calling.
But I don't
You
do
must,
that anymore. It killed me. It was
yeah,
brutal.
yeah, yeah. It takes a lot of confidence, doesn't it? And I think,
Yeah.
um, how did you feel like making your very first phone call? Did you have a lot? Was it successful? Do you think? Were people receiving you well, or you know?
Okay, so the thing is, before I came, also, like whilst I was in the UK, I dabbled in a little. I tried a few things. Like, I don't know if you know this network marketing business called Herbalife.
Yeah, I think I've
Herbalife.
heard of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it comes with like an education program, and like they send you CDs. Like Jim Rohn, if you knew this motivational speaker who passed away, he had a. They would give you stuff, and they'll try and teach you on how to cold call and and how to handle
Mm,
rejection, all these things. And I've even read in Robert Kiyosaki's book that his thoughts on network marketing is the best part of some of them is that
mm,
they give you an education. I'm not in any network marketing business anymore, but
mm,
at that time, that particular education, I found that those things were transferable to these other stuff. Like I knew what I was doing in terms of cold calling. I would have a little script, you know. I knew that I shouldn't expect a yes for everything. I should probably
mm,
expect a lot of no's before I get a yes, and all sorts of
mm.
stuff. So um, I can't even remember the first because I had to do it for the Herbalife stuff, and it was terrible, terrible,
Yeah.
terrible. So when I had to do it for this, and because I believed in the product as well and its viability, and also because in my country people are very polite. Like they're it, usually we're very polite. It's very rare that you'd get someone being super abusive to you over the phone or in person. So I was fortunate as well that I was working in a climate where it is instilled into us to be polite to people.
Mm. Okay.
But the
Wow.
discomfort was still there, but it just wasn't brutal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's very good that you were prepared for that and you actually took advantage of that course that you had. Very, very important. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move just a little bit. I'm going to move myself to your side and hopefully you should be
Okay.
moved to my side because it's the logo is not showing one part of your eye. So
Yeah,
to
I
make
kept
sure.
on moving because of that.
No, it's fine. See, this is much better. There we go.
Thank you.
Okay, so you had the experience of cold calling, and then website design was essentially your first business, and then what came after that?
So I did website design and social media marketing when that became a thing,
Mm,
and I still do that to at present. Of course, I'm trying to wean myself away from website design and focusing more on social media marketing, just because I feel that the money is a little bit better for social media marketing campaigns
wow.
for large organizations, not individuals. I prefer like having fewer clients. And better money, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So Shekinah Invest is the business
Mhm.
that I started specifically for website design and social media marketing and IT training and things like that.
Okay.
And then I started an organization called Afrineur, but
Afrineur.
yeah, initially it was called Invest Malawi in 2016,
Mhm.
and the idea was to see if we could help entrepreneurs, um, with what they need. So it wasn't just a me thing. Because of all the things I've gone through, there was like a theme in terms of what other people experience. So we began with a conference called Funding Your Big Idea. And when
Wow.
I say we, I mean I asked a couple of friends, hey guys, and when someone is excited and you manage to
Mm,
sell it to your friends, they can help you out with it. So two of my friends, Nda, Munlo, and Maggie, Guira, friends from here from Malawi, who helped me put the conference together. They helped me find the actual presenters. We managed to secure sponsors for most of the things that we needed. Like the university I did my bachelor's at gave us the venue, 2,000 seater hall.
wow.
um, our biggest newspaper, nation publication, gave us free advertisement for like, was it 3 times, and an interview, and it just seemed like we were endorsed. Also,
Wow.
2 radio stations came on board and gave free coverage, which is unusual because usually they would prefer just to be the one, radio and TV, you know
Mm,
um, but then I think they just knew that we needed the help, and all the presenters that came we're so lucky though, flying into Malawi around about the same time to, someone from Portugal, someone from the UK. And it was just a lot of luck. And people want to learn about how to fund their idea with say, a grant, with a personal equity, capital, what is this? Angel investment, venture capital, loans. So what we're trying to do was to introduce all of the possibilities so that someone who's sitting there can say, okay, I think what's viable for me is if I look at finding a grant, or what's viable for me is if I look at engaging angel investors. Now, the people who are speaking about this, and this was the I think the best thing about it was that these are people that were actually they were not talking hypothetically. They were talking about this from the perspective of being there. Like the person who spoke about angel investment, had received angel investment twice, I think, or once at least. There was someone else who was talking about venture capital who managed to secure $50,000 for their, I think a mango manufacturing business. So we managed to get really quality presenters, and I think about 300 or so people came. At the time, I was very disappointed because based on the people we asked to pre-register, we were expecting so many more, and I was very naive, as you can imagine. I was looking at the numbers and thinking, based on the people pre-registered, but because we were doing free registration, people were at the door, and that wasn't something I knew wouldn't help us. I only learned later that if you get people to pay up front, they're more likely to show up. So so with Afrineur, or then Invest Malawi, we began with the conference, and then came some trainings the year after, 2017. And the trainings were basically things like financial literacy 101, finding a gap in the market, how to pitch to an investor. And a lot of the people that presented at the conference were happy to be the facilitators for the trainings that we had the following year. So we were also very fortunate that we were fostering those relationships. And one of the main things that I kept noticing was that funding remained an issue. It's not everybody who can get a loan or feel confident about securing a loan and being able to pay it back. It may take a business some time before it's actually profitable enough to do so. Personal equity, it's a challenge for entrepreneurs, especially in Africa or in Malawi. So I started looking at the idea of setting up a crowdfunding platform. And so through 2018 to we could say last year, I was in a program called the Innovation Scholars Program that was being handled by the Malawi University of Science and Technology, and was funded by Michigan State University through a USAID grant. So I wasn't able to finish building my platform because the idea was to build a prototype, like a working prototype of a crowdfunding platform for Malawian entrepreneurs and those within the region to be able to fundraise through their communities via the platform, the funds that they need for their great ideas, for their businesses, for their ventures. So in terms of Afrineur, I think I got a bit burnt out with that, so that's on the shelf for now. But the prototype, exists and lives quietly in my PC. Yes, and then in 2019, started a Creative Africa Space, and you told me, and it made me very happy when you told me that you were reading my book. Thank you so much. And that's part of the work under Creative Africa Space, because I think, as I told you, that one of the things I would describe myself as is creative, and I have different ways in how I try to share that creativity. And I felt that setting up a Creative Africa Space would be the best way to package a lot of that creativity. So under that are
Mm.
the 3 books that I wrote and published in 2019.
Yeah.
The one that challenge
Challenge.
accepted,
Yeah.
and then 2 books that are poetry books because I'm also a poet,
Mm.
and 1 poetry album.
Oh.
And then there are plans. Obviously, the goal isn't just to have my work, but also to have other people's work published under the same, entity. But
Mm.
also, I have some writing projects that I'm working on right now,
Wow.
um, of my own. It sounds like a lot, but it isn't. It really isn't. You know,
Wow.
no, what I mean is like I'm talking about like the books I said I published in 2019. It sounds like I did all that in 2019, and that's not true because
Okay.
the two poetry books, I've been writing poem uh, since I was a kid, and
Mm.
especially from my teenage years to present. I mean, I lost a bunch at some point, but I've been keeping those and sometimes improving them, but usually they're just the way they are because it just
Mm.
seems like that's how they should be. And so when
Yeah.
I published in 2019, it was just a matter of like collecting the ones that I felt were best for the 2 individual books. And the one
Mm.
book that I did take some time like to actually put together is the business book, the challenge
Mm.
accepted book from 2018 to 2019,
Mm.
writing that. But when you're saying this, when I'm saying it, it may sound like it's a lot, but some of it is over a span of time.
Yeah.
Some of it is for years, like the poetry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll pick up on the Creative Africa space, and you
Okay.
mentioned the package. So you've talked about writing. Is it mostly writing that is part of the package for Creative Africa space, or is there like a space for art and other forms of creativity?
I'm so glad you asked that. I'm glad because yes, there is, by the way. That's the direct
Okay.
response, direct answer to the question. Yes, there's a space for all types of creativity.
Mm.
Um, and I'm saying I'm glad because in 2018, 2019, I also started painting. And
Mm.
at my launch for the books, we also did an exhibition of some of my paintings. Um, so the idea as well, like if I have an exhibition, it would be also under Creative Africa Space, or if I can
Mm.
get other artists on board and we do a joint exhibition. Even actually at my launch, there were 2 other artists, I think, that were present with their work, if not one. I think there were 2 others.
Mm.
So there were 3 of us who exhibited our paintings at the actual, launch.
Yeah.
So yeah, poetry, painting, comedy,
Mm.
whatever that is creative, it goes under that umbrella.
Okay. Okay, that's good. So you seem to be very, 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 from what you've mentioned about what you've done in the past and what you're still doing, it seems like you have a thing for community, building a community of people. I think, how would you say that? What's the motivation behind bringing people together and just trying to ensure that they're able to, maximize their potential? Do you feel like, is it due to the fact that you see that there's not a lot in the of opportunities available? Is that why you usually bring people together to, create things or businesses, whatnot?
Um, that's a really good question, which you did not give me time to rehearse. That
Sometimes it just
response.
comes.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm thinking that for me, one of my things is that I like to share. Like
Mm.
I really, really like to share. And I think when it comes to creativity, oftentimes these are not things that you just want to keep to yourself, though there are those things that you may make and it's just yours. But a lot of the times when we create something, whatever we create, we may enjoy it, but there comes a point where we would want to share it with someone. It may just be, a
Mm.
single friend or, a group of friends or a whole community or the world or whatever. So I
Mm.
think primarily there's that concept of wanting to share. And,
Yeah.
when I look at some of the things that I've done, like the books, there's that whole element of wanting to share. But
Yeah.
in particular, when it comes to like the entrepreneurship book, I think for me, it was from the fact that it was so hard. Like I learned it. I mean, it is hard. Being an entrepreneur it's challenging. And
Yeah.
even if it's not, I think your organization is an NGO. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Soon to
Uh,
be. Yeah.
Exactly. So starting anything,
Mm.
an NGO or a for profit, it is hard to get the
Yeah.
traction, to get the support, to keep on going before you see the fruits that you like in your head, the vision that you have versus what is there on the ground. They may not
Mhm.
yet, be in sync yet. And
Yeah.
so I think there's that very strong element of just wanting to share the stuff that I did that worked, and even the stuff that I did that didn't work, so someone can sidestep that. And I think
Mm.
it's really, really important, because I don't see the point of going through all of that and then just like, oh, okay,
It
I
is
went
that.
through it and that's it.
Mm.
Whereas maybe someone can look at it and benefit. And even before I like wrote that, sometimes I would have like, because I'm a spiritual person or a religious person or whatever the term
Mm.
um, one might prefer.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'd have like a month of service. That's what I would call it, where I'm just gonna because maybe because it's, honestly, the times when I've had like a little idea, like, oh, let's do a conference, or I've always had at least I've always had a few people who'd be willing to go with me on those journeys.
Yes.
I've
Yes.
never had an idea and I'm just by myself. Like I can at least get one person who will ride with me until the wheels fall off.
Oh.
So I've had those times where I'm like, okay, so I think let me give back right now, to someone else who's trying to do the same thing. So if like a friend told me, oh, my friend's starting a business, I'll be like, okay, hey, I'd love to meet him or her, and we can sit down and I can share what worked for me, the resources I've used, the stuff that I've learned. So it just made natural sense to develop other things that would help those type of people have an easier job of doing what I have tried to do. So whether it's the book or the conferences or the trainings, I think the spirit was the same. That empathy, like, I know what you're going through, let me help you.
Mm.
Or maybe it's not empathy, maybe it's me trying to help someone that looks like me, like emotionally going through the same stuff. I don't know.
Mm.
But yeah.
Okay. Wow, wow, wow. Thank you for sharing that. It's very, very important to share. I don't think anyone goes through life, just keeping everything to themselves. And there's a saying that says a problem shared is a problem half solved. So it's important to have people around you and also to share your experiences as well. It could make someone's life easier. All right. So in terms of the book, I bought the book and it's on my phone. If you can see it, it's not the best lighting, but yeah, it's on my phone. And it's a very, very, very good book. And it talks all about challenges of, being a business person in Africa. And also there's some good parts to it as well, because it's all about, the challenges, but yes, you can still make it. So if you were to summarize some key lessons from the book, let's just say in terms of the challenges, what would you say? Pick 3 challenges that will affect everyone that lives on the continent of Africa. We're all at different development levels, but which 3 challenges would you say everyone in Africa will agree that this is a problem?
Okay. Okay. Functioning in dysfunction. I think I would say that's one.
Yes.
Managing yourself.
Mm.
And the third one is like 2, because I can't pick 3 right now because 2 popped up for the. So staying motivated and disciplined.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. So in terms of staying motivated and disciplined, I've lived in Africa, so I know that it's quite, especially from where I come from Ghana, slow.
Ah,
So it's slow.
I've been
Things
to Ghana.
you have.
Yeah, Accra.
Oh wow. Wow. Okay, we'll talk more about it, but I hope you had a good
Okay.
experience. You had a good experience, right?
It was fantastic. I loved it.
Yeah. Yes. So in terms of like Africa, I would say I'm not going to generalize. Things can be quite slow to get things started. People move quite slowly, in my country anyway. People will say yes, but then you have to chase them to get things done. I don't know if that's your experience in Malawi as well, but in terms of staying motivated, when you have these kind of issues, what kind of examples can you give to support staying motivated when there's, things not happening?
Okay, so I think off the top of my head, I think number one, picking one's battles or picking one's alliances. And that includes, and I know that when we're starting off, it's much harder to pick. Sometimes we just want to take everything because it's so, like the pickings are so slim at the very
Mm,
beginning. But what I mean in particular is, okay, you can choose the people that work with you. You can choose to work with people who you share the same work ethic. Like, that if you have a deadline for tomorrow at 10 a.m. and they have a stake in the deadline, like they have to get some part of the work done also. So it depends on both of you to get it done on time. Then
mm,
it's in your best interest to pick people or to work with people whom you align with work ethics
mm,
wise. Like if you know that you're a punctual person and this person is going to stress you out every
mm,
single day, it's
mm.
better to probably not have that working relationship at that level. Maybe this is someone you can work with once in a blue moon if you
Mm.
have to, if you have the
Yeah.
luxury of choosing. But I think when it comes to like business partners or like alliances or people who you collaborate with, sometimes you have that opportunity, and sometimes people are willing to step up to your standards or down to
Mm.
your standards, however
It ends up
things work
working.
out. Yeah,
Yeah.
but my point is, though, I feel like entrepreneurship is already stressful, and there are going to be
Mm.
some things that are going to be stressful. Like you cannot change perhaps how your government works, or the overall culture of things, but
Yeah.
you can fashion how your personal you know environment is, your business environment is. Like if you feel punctuality is important or whatever, you can make sure that you do that, and that
Mm.
if you're working with other people, that you work with people who at least respect that, or if they know that if they're working with you, they have to step it up. Like,
Mm.
maybe they slack off somewhere else, but when it comes to you, they follow through. I think
Mm.
all of us have those things that we find make it easier to work with someone else, or makes it harder. So it's an individual thing. Like, that, okay, I can let it slide for XYZ or whatever, but when it comes to this, I would prefer certain things happening. So you can't change. I mean, culture does change. It really does. If everybody starts to become punctual, for example, the whole culture would change. But
Mm.
for us to get there, though, it can take time. So you can only work on yourself, really. Instead of always fuming at like everything else around you, just you'd make yourself sick. I think we just have to look at the stuff that is within the power of our hands to affect, and see how best we can work within that. And like, for example, myself, over these years, I would see in the newspapers projects for the government or whatever, and to be honest, I would usually not apply,
Mm.
because I know the process and I know my personality, and I don't have the patience. And I know other people who have a different personality that works very well for that. Like they can be patient, they
Yeah.
can, this thing might take 6 months to materialize, and they are willing to wait it out. And I could wait it out if I have a business partner who can help me have that patience. But by myself, I don't. Therefore, I prefer projects that are just, have a different flow. Yeah.
Okay. So first one, pick your alliances, and then
Mhm.
what other ways can we overcome challenges in the African context? So picking the right people. That's basically
Mhm.
what you're trying to say. Picking the right people who you can work with.
Yeah.
What
When you
else?
can choose, sometimes you can't
Oh,
choose. Yeah.
oh, you can't. Sometimes you can't choose.
I mean, like
Why?
you're like, okay, like for example, maybe your ecosystem
Okay.
is small, for example, and there's certain people you just have to work with. But I don't mean like your actual business partner, like you can't choose that person. I believe you can choose that one, but
Yeah.
there might be, occasions where you, for some reason, you have to work with a consortium of other people within the same industry, and you just have to tell yourself, okay, let's just push through for the next 6 months until this is done, you know.
Mm.
And so you just have to is it grin your teeth and bear it, or grit your teeth and
Good,
bear
that's
it.
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's great. Thank
So
you
the
very
other
much.
one, another one I think is locus of control. I read about this, by the way. There's this I don't know if it's a psychology thing or sociology thing or whatever, but who you put the responsibility on. So if your
Mm.
locus of control is external, then you're saying it's when a person like myself will start to say, okay, this is not working because of the government. This is
Mm.
not working because of the weather. This is not working because of my genetics or my ancestors. You know, there are a whole bunch of things, and I'm not saying that those things aren't factors. I'm not saying that. I'm
Okay.
not saying that. But the thing is, when we point everything outwards, then we rob ourselves of the fact that there is some power. I do have
Mm.
some power. I don't have to I don't have to behave exactly the way I am predisposed to because of my upbringing or my culture or my gender or my educational background or my societal whatever. It's just looking at whether you put the responsibility or the accountability externally or internally. So
Mm.
putting it outside robs you or robs me of the ability to affect change. Yeah.
Mm. Okay.
Agency. It affects agency.
Okay. Okay. Wow. Very good points. Thank you very much. I think, to be honest, I think that's probably something that a lot of people will say, even in terms of our youth. Um, I was watching well, just interviews on the news, and it was based on Ghana, and they will ask young people like, oh, what do you want to be when you finish university? They'll be like, oh, I don't even know I'm going to be anything. There are no jobs out there. They're complaining basically. So there's this new revolution of young people who want to actually be, who want to start their own things, let's just say, start their own businesses, start their own research organizations, so many other things. And then I'm really, really for that, because I believe that we can't just put everything on the government to do it for us, or wait for someone to actually do it. So it's very important that we as people are very grounded and actually take the time to see, look at other people and see what's working for them, what's not working for them, and then be able to apply that to our own initiatives. So No Ordinary Life is hopefully going to be able to, actually not even hopefully, we will be able to do to help young people in that area. And it's very important that we have people like you who are able to share your experiences and not just keep it to yourselves. And it's very, very good that we're having this interview today. So in terms of, you mentioned on challenges, in terms of what you've seen work or how you've been able to overcome those challenges, I suppose one of them will be picking the right people, and also not blaming external forces. In terms of yourself, you mentioned how you're stubborn. I think this is where it's going to come in. How were you able to rise as an entrepreneur, basically? How were you able to overcome certain challenges which might probably make someone quit, you say?
Well, I feel like you know in the intro of my of challenge accepted, I wrote there's a sentence I took from, I think, was it Seth Godin, if that's how we pronounce his name, where he says in one of his books that uh, th- you know uh, succeeding is surviving is succeeding. I think that's the phrase.
Okay.
Yeah. And the idea is that, I mean, obviously, I am nowhere near what I would want for myself as an
Mm.
entrepreneur. Nowhere near, like, nowhere, absolutely nowhere near it. But I'm at the point where my entrepreneurship activities fund my life 100%.
Mm,
And that took so long to get here, like so
mm,
long, incredibly long. So I think the stubbornness helped,
mhm,
because there were so many times when I should have given up. Like a rational, sound human being would have just
mm,
accepted that this is not working, give up. Seriously. And then the thing is also, oftentimes it's not that what you're doing isn't great, but sometimes you can find a better opportunity comes your way. Like I've
mm,
had occasions where I've turned down um jobs, um, because I was stubborn.
mm,
Whereas I know people who are wiser than me who would have said, you know what, why didn't you just take that, build
mm,
financial capital, and then after, when you're good and ready, when you're financially sound, when you're not suffering financially, then you can start your, whatever it is that you want to start. And
mm,
I know that that is extremely sound advice,
mm,
extremely sound. But I also know that I'm not the type of person where that would work for me,
mm,
because I know some people whom that's actually, that's a wise thing. Like if I had a friend come to me and they needed advice, I'd probably give them that advice. Like, hey, you want
mm,
to be an entrepreneur? Great. Get financially sound. When you're ready, start. Because I know how it is to suffer, as an entrepreneur. I would like
mm,
someone to be spared from that. So I think the stubbornness is what assisted. But I also want to just go back to something that I said earlier. Um, about the whole external locus of control thing. I don't want to invalidate other people's experiences. Uh,
mm,
Everything that I don't want to say everything, but there are so many things that they're experiencing that do affect their present circumstances,
yeah.
that do affect where they are, how far they have gone in their businesses, whether they're able or capable of starting. There's so many factors. So their concerns are valid,
Mm,
complete. Their feelings about it are completely valid. But what I
yeah.
wanted to emphasize is that we are never powerless, is what I'm trying to get at. There's always
Mm,
something that we can do that can help us get to whatever it is that we want. And sometimes it may require us thinking differently. Maybe
mm,
the concept, some people think, oh, I need to have X amount of money, then I'll start a business. And that's why I
mm,
can't start a business, or I'm unemployed. And so I have no money, and yet this person is maybe a journalist, like they studied journalism. They could
mm,
start, a side hustle, editing or writing or
mm,
teaching or tutoring secondary school kids, or so many different things. But it really does require thinking differently.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
sorry, you know what? I've forgotten the actual question.
No, I think what you've actually taught, yeah, you've covered it. It's I wanted to find out more about how the stubbornness has helped you. So I think you've
Okay.
answered it. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So in one final question about that, and then we'll do the challenge. And actually, to prepare you for the challenge, I have, mm, well, I have a chat. Well, there's a challenge wheel, but I want you to. I know you're creative, so I'm thinking maybe for the challenge, we'll get you to read one of your poems. I'm thinking.
Ah.
I'm thinking.
Okay.
That's what we can do. It makes my life easier.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
get ready for that one. I'll give you some time to look for something. But yeah,
Okay.
my question will be: we're in the 21st century. Um, I think the more opportunities available than before. There's social media, there's YouTube. You can learn to do so many things from YouTube. Um, what kind of businesses would you say are viable or would work in Africa now, if you were to pick businesses that would you don't need a capital to start, or it's very good business in Africa, it will work.
All right. I love that question. I really do.
Mhm.
I think, okay, I mentioned that I'm spiritual religious, and I think it makes me remember this passage in the Bible that says, is God who gives us the ability to make wealth,
Mm,
and then also you know, what do you have in your hands? Can't even remember which verse that was, but someone was asked, what do you have in your hands? And what
Mm.
I'm trying to get at is that the mo almost all of us, I would like to believe that all of us have something in our
Yeah.
hands, you
Yeah.
know, and
Yes.
it may
Yeah.
not be something physical, but it's like what I said about the skill, like a journalist has. You see, the problem is what ends up happening is we are so stuck in what our culture says
Mm.
we're supposed to do, and that's what
Mm.
causes the problem. Because then you think, okay, because right now I. You know, I've been sending job applications. No one's hiring me, et cetera, et cetera. Therefore, I have no money because I don't have a
Mm.
job. And if you ask that person, well, you know, so I would have said specific things like, hey, you could try XYZ, which I think I will say. But
Mm.
above and beyond all of that, anywhere in the world, I think the first question for anyone should be, what do I have in my hands?
And yeah.
Yeah. So if you went to university or even high school, if you
Mm.
went to high school, like you finished, here we have form four.
Mm.
You went to form four, you passed your form four, and you don't have enough money to start a business. Or you know, or you no one wants to employ you, like because the minimum entry requirements are higher now, so you need at least a degree or whatever. I would say, well, what do you have in your hands? Okay, so you have your form four, you have your MSc. Maybe for now you can look at tutoring people, you know,
Mm.
tutoring other students at that point. Maybe you
Wow.
finished university, and you did I don't know, you know, the very at the very least, like right now I do a lot of ghostwriting and a lot of editing.
Mm.
I shouldn't say a lot, but it feels like a lot. um, you know, these are things that someone with any university degree, I shouldn't
Mm.
say any, but a lot of university degrees would be capable of being able to do, like editing and writing. Now,
Mm.
I'm not saying you'd be able to write a bestseller or something, but I think there's certain people who would be willing to hire that person to maybe write blog posts for them,
Mm.
to, you know, again, the whole tutoring thing.
Mm.
Um, to do there are different things, maybe
Mm.
sales representative for something, but I
Mm.
think we get so stuck, and I think that's the thing that we need to dismantle as individuals, or to look at critically.
Mm.
And I think there's a question, and I don't know if you asked that or whatever, but I at some point I wanted to tell you that from where I am at right now as a person is that I
Mm.
realize that self awareness is extremely important
Mm.
for my quality of life and my own personal development. And I
Mm.
think for everyone else, because once you are self aware, or at least you grow in self awareness, because there are levels to these things. Like at some point, you might think you know yourself, and then 5 years from now, you're like, whoa, at that time, I
Mm.
thought I knew myself. I didn't. So
Yeah.
getting to know yourself and the motives underneath, you know, your train of thoughts, the decisions you make. So what do you have in your hands? Self-awareness, I guess
Mm.
that's connected, those two things. And then
Yeah.
looking at what your environment wants or needs, and
Mm.
what you can do in terms of those needs. If, for example,
Mm.
you live near a factory or something and people need food, oh, why not make that food? You
Mm.
know, for example, I used to live in a different neighborhood when I was staying with my parents, and we lived near some shopping malls. And I decided to start like a takeaway thing. Made a little menu, took the
Mm.
menu, made some free food, like little packed meals. It took a while for it to get traction.
Mm.
Uh, but eventually, one office was like, "Hey, can you deliver to our office in the city center?" And we're like far away from that.
Wow.
Um, but for me, it was like a proof of concept.
Mm.
And I'm not trained as a cook. You know, it's just something I can do. And cooking is something anyone can do.
Mm.
So there's also that element of being able to humble yourself from what you expect from yourself and what you think other people expect from yourself. Because there's
Mm.
always that thing like, what would people think of me? Or what do I think of me? Or whatever. But as long as you're not
Mm.
hurting anyone, or you're not going against your personal values, I think it's okay to look outside of what you know would have perceived for yourself at that time.
Mm. Wow. Wow. That's very, very, very good. Three very, very, very good points, and I agree with all of them. And so thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
So what we're going to do now is I'll give you a chance to pick a poem that you want to read for us.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you have one in mind, or you have to think
I
about it?
I was looking for one, and I think I have one in mind. It's called Before. Um,
Before.
let me see if yeah, I have it.
Okay. All right. So if you just joined us, thank you so much for joining and for watching No Ordinary Interview. So today, Maclean, who is also not just the businesswoman, a creative, ghostwriter, so many things. She's also a poet, and she's going to be reading a poem called, what is it called again?
Before.
Before. Yes. So before you came, we were talking about her life. Now she's going to read her poem called Before. So yeah, excited. Take it away.
Okay. Before. Before anyone told me you get to be just one thing. Before I was told money is God, money is king. Before anyone told me it was gay to stop random strangers in the street and say, "My gosh, you look lovely." Before anyone told me people don't do that. Before anyone told me you had to be exclusively in love to say the words "I love you" to people whose hearts yours sometimes beat for, though the injustice of those words trapped inside your mouth were like a lie left to run wild out inside. Before anyone told me that you're not allowed to dream this big or think this wide, you're not allowed to think outside what everyone has construed it as legitimate, attainable, and expected. Before anyone told me that it was not okay, just not okay to be that person who sees it raining out and wants to go outside. Before anyone told me it wasn't okay to dance to music in its presence or absence, wherever you find yourself and it finds you and that groove moves you in the streets, in the office. Before anything was said, before there was something wrong with being this, with being me, just before that, I was invincible, incredibly so. I was bold, oblivious, and naive. I was desperately adoring of life and a hopeless romantic. I was that dewy eyed romantic that life is made for. I believed everything and in everything, and I believed that the world was different from this. I could see beauty in the snout of a pig. I could see the face of God in darn near everything. That is before I caught myself torn between before and this. Thank you.
Wow, that was amazing. That was amazing. That was so good. And
Thank you.
yeah, you're a performer, not just a writer, a poet. You actually performed that poem. So wow.
Thank you, Claudia.
I'm looking forward to hearing more. So I'll be following your page, Creative Africa Space. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll be
Thank you.
following that. I also write as well, but that was
Ah,
yes.
where can we see your writing?
Uh,
Or when you start to make it public, if you haven't, I would love to enjoy some of your work as well.
okay. Okay. I
Yeah,
have a blog, but I'll put all of that in the chat if anyone's interested. It's
awesome.
called intraordinarylife.blogspot.com. Yeah, I'll type it because it's quite complicated. But yeah, that was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank
And
you.
I have one last question for you. I hope it's going to be the last question. I have plenty of questions, but I'll make it the last question. My question is, you mentioned that you're spiritual. I won't say religious. Spiritual, religious, whichever way you want to take it. How has your faith played a role in where you are and the directions that you take? Do you, yeah? Did you feel like you know
Ooh, oh my gosh. Ah,
do you feel like you know exactly what your purpose is? You know how has all of these
hello?
things? Oh, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello, hello. Can you hear me, McLean?
You broke off there. Can you repeat the question?
Okay. Yes. So my question to you was, how has your faith played a part in your life, basically? How does your faith guide you?
Okay. Well, I'm a Christian, and I think my faith informs. I'm probably not I'm probably not a great Christian. I haven't been to church in a while. um,
Oh.
but but um
Naughty.
but sorry.
I said naughty, naughty.
Well, I'll work on that. I'm gonna work on that. But the thing is, though, I, for me, a lot of the decisions that I make now I feel like they're faith based. Like I remember, like there's someone in the chat that said hi Meisho. This is one of my close friends who, many months ago, I told her, like over a year ago, I said, you know what, I'm gonna stop doing the work that I'm not happy doing. So I want to focus on only doing the work that I love or like or enjoy. And her and some other friends were concerned because sometimes you get work that isn't exactly what you love, but it will keep the lights on, like it'll pay the rent.
Yeah.
And that's very sound advice, to do the work if it's coming in. But then the thing is, I decided to believe that, you know what, God said he's going to provide. This is the work I should be doing, because I truly believe that I'm supposed to be happy.
Yeah.
And therefore I wanted to choose the work that would make me happy. So I deliberately started looking for work that would allow that to be the case. So essentially at the bottom line of it is faith, in my opinion, that God would come through, on that, like, because it's not based on sound logic. Logic says whatever's coming in, as long as you're skilled to do it. But the direction I want to take with authentic happiness, there's this project by the University of Pennsylvania called the Authentic Happiness Project. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but I love to do personality tests and all these other things. And they've got this test that you can do to find out your main qualities or characteristics, like what you asked, the first question you asked me. And they give you, I think, 25, and then your top 10 are like your core. And their theory is that if you incorporate a life that has those, you're going to be happy, like authentically happy.
Okay.
And yeah, it's a free test on their website. Authentic. They've got like a bunch of tests, but anyway. So I it's not just that informed it, but other things that I've done. Like I love these. I don't know if you're familiar with MBTI and all these other things. Yeah. So even when I look at that, and that's something I've been using for years to know myself, because that's the journey I'm on, to self-awareness and to override my programming, whatever it is that I kind of picked up through culture or generational whatever, and to override that. But as I'm doing that, knowing that these are the qualities that make me happy as I express them, I thought, well, I'm going to challenge God. If this is how he made me, and these are my top qualities, and if I'm using these, then I'm going to have to believe that resources are going to come, finances come. And to be honest, it was really, 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 really rough. Really rough. Like, I think also because I have to keep on relying on faith that, next project's going to come. But as I sit right now, after say a year and 2 or 3 months, actually I think it's working out. It worked out. Like, I'm doing most of the work that I love. I've set boundaries on certain things that I felt weren't working well for me, to see if that can work well with some clients here and there. yeah, I think at the end of everything, it's a lot of faith. Like I mentioned that I'm creative and I perform. I also do stand up, and these are the kind of things that I would want to fill my life up with: the writing, the expressing of creativity, and all that. And my belief is, if I am doing this, and this is how God made me, then He's going to provide the resources for these to be funded.
Mm. Wow.
And even like with your organization, if that is in line with your core uh characteristics or qualities, and
Yeah.
I don't know what your faith is or whatever, but I would like to believe that if you're actually in alignment with that, then certain
Yeah.
things are going to have to go to you. It's just gonna,
Amen.
that's how it's supposed to work,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a
Mm.
comforting thought, I think.
Yeah, very true. Wow, that's very, very true. Thank you so much for sharing. And
You're
that will
welcome.
be that's my last question. Oh no, 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 not my last question. Yeah, one last.
Yeah, please, I've enjoyed your presence. Shoot.
I have one question. No, it's a final one, honestly.
Okay.
Um, okay, so this is a personal question. What does Maclean like to do for fun?
Ooh, oh, okay.
The spare time.
Um, all right. Well, okay, so for fun, to be honest, with the pandemic and being shut in a lot, I watch a lot of unnecessary videos online, like lots of YouTube binging, and
Mm,
I go down these rabbit holes, but also crafts. I like crafts, like
okay.
making things, but I guess it goes back to that. But yeah, movies, lots of movies. And again, with the pandemic, I used to love action movies a lot, but somehow um apocalyptic type movies have become my
Mm,
thing. Like, I have watched so many since the pandemic, it's insane. So
wow.
movies and reading, I love that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That's good. That's good. And writing as well. Or you feel like it's become more of a work thing now? You don't associate it with.
I love poetry. But then I like writing, but it's certain
Mm,
things that are right. Like poetry, it just flows. Like sometimes you have a thing, like a heartbreak or like a joyous thing or whatever, and then you just want to get it out somehow. And so a poem is very natural and it will flow, and it's not something you force. It just comes.
mm.
So yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Thank you for sharing. And that will be the end of my
Well,
questionings. It's been great having you share with us, and I am looking forward to hearing more from you. And No Ordinary Life is going places. By faith, I believe that No Ordinary Life will be in Malawi, God willing. So yes,
amen.
we'll be happy for you to
I'm
take
with you in the
the
faith.
stage. Yes, definitely. We'll be happy for you to take the stage and share your story in person, because we believe that you had a lot, well, good things to say
I'm
to
already
encourage
there.
you. Yeah, definitely. And my takeaway from today is, what is in your hand? Like, what do you have? I've been hearing this a lot, actually. So it's just a confirmation that, that I think our creator or God is telling us to really look at what he's put in us. We have education, that's good. If you're educated, that's good, but God gives everyone something. He gives a poor man something, he gives a rich man something, and then everything else is just an addition. So it just makes me remember someone who's a comedian, could become a comedian, and you don't know where that's going to take you. It's going to take you places. These days with social media, things go viral. So your talking, your funniness is something that could make a way for you. So don't disregard what you have, basically. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing with us. And it's been
Thank
a pleasure
you,
having you.
Claudia.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
for having me, and thank you everybody who tuned in.
Yes, thank you so much for joining. And we're looking forward to more interviews, and stick with us. And thank you so much, Maclean. And we'll say bye for now. Bye, everyone.
Bye.